The squad of galactic police arrived at the restaurant with armed support, in the form of exosuit-wearing Greslins. Sergeant Tavish blinked at the sight of the unconscious Philas outside of the place. Someone had knocked out a Philas? They were tough. Then when he stepped inside, he muttered in shock at the sight of no less than a full squad of them strewn about the place. He checked their IDs and noted they were indeed registered as Galactic Special Forces. They were known for their intimidating battle dance and vicious close combat tactics. Something had laid them out. Perhaps a Vekish ambush? Rival Philas squad, maybe? The place was empty since the clients and staff had all run away the moment the fight started. He didn't blame them. This place must have been filled with combatants. Technician Kevnar, find the security footage. We need to know if we're dealing with a full attack or just an isolated incident. The Greslins in their exosuits spread out through the station, computers scanning for targets in case they were attacked. The technician connected to the security terminal behind the counter and began to play back the video. Sergeant, you need to see this. Tavish walked closer, extending his hand to plug into the port in the back of Kevnar's suit so he could see what his technician was looking at. What am I looking at? It's just a scene of the restaurant. A red box formed around an ugly-looking biped in some rather barbaric-looking clothes. Just watch him, his tech said. The sergeant frowned for a moment. That thing? Why? Does he call over more of his kind? He watched the Philas enter, their feared battle ball hovering above them. The ugly one got up and then... Tavish was silent with shock as he watched the security footage. He grew silent once more. His mouth hung open within his sealed exosuit. That's... Then he saw the figure pick up the bottle and hit the Philas outside with it. He didn't have a computer aiming aid. How did he do that? It was dead on target. And the force of the throw... No creature could throw something like that so accurately without the assistance of a computer and decades of training. Finally, he noticed the other figure, as the two of them ran off with the food. Kevnar, zoom in on that one. What is it, sir? Tavish gulped nervously. Few know that figure. Those are Death Welders who might possibly be the greatest threat to the galactic government we've ever known. And that's a diplomat. With a new Death Welder. By deity responsible for the dead, we need to inform the capital at once. What can you tell me about that ugly one? The technician was already printing out what he could find on the docking manifest. Sir, from what I've got here, that ugly barbarian is known as Billy Bob, Space Trucker. Billy Bob and Emily were eating their meals as he got the Longhorn back into the FTL lane so he could get out of the area before the local Smokies caught up. Isn't a bird, Emily was saying, as she snapped up pieces of the space meat on space bread and had a few nibbles of the space veggies. Billy Bob had to agree with her as he nodded. The two different kinds of meat were a little odd. It was sort of like having a tri-tip on top of pork, but overall not bad. The fried space potatoes were hot and a little bit too big, but otherwise not bad. It's how to get your meat, he said, as he chewed on the makeshift space burger, and then finally swallowed as he nodded his head back at the fridge. Hey, can you see if I have any more beer in there? Emily extended her neck a little as she swallowed, and then shook her head swiftly for a moment, much like he pictured a bird might. Is it wise to consume alcohol and drive? You shotgunned a whole can and you're fine. She looked thoughtful for a moment, and then rose out of her seat to walk back and check the fridge, two of her hands pulling the door open, while the other two held her meal. Just one? And something called Juice Springsteen? Billy Bob nodded at that. Yeah, the drink for the brewery man. Just bring me that and you can have the beer. He heard the crack of a can, followed by the crinkle of the aluminium as she bit it. He shook his head slowly, as he thought about just how fucking cool it was to be travelling through space with a fucking space eagle as his passenger. And one who shotguns beers like a fucking pro. She walked back up to the front, handing him a can in one hand, while the other three handled her beer and food. As she sat back down, he cracked open the juice Springsteen and gave a long slurp. How come you drink in small doses like that? He glanced over and shrugged, while balancing the space burger on his lap. I don't have a mouth shaped like yours. It's more difficult to do what you do. She shrugged at that for a moment. I like these cans your species uses. It makes it very efficient to consume liquid. He chuckled softly at that and shrugged. Tell me, Billy Bob, are you aware of less than legal markets? It seems to me like you could use some supplies, and since you enjoy meat, the standard galactic refueling stations won't really have what you want. That caught his interest as he looked over at her. There are species who have markets with meat. From what I've seen, we're the only ones who deal in it, openly at least. Emily nodded at that. The only ones who do it openly. The space goblins set up stations here and there to deal supplies to those who know where to find them. Space goblins? I love those guys. They always seem like the sort of Xenos I want to get to know, but they're so hard to get a read on. I guess they have to warm up to us as a species. Emily actually looked surprised. You've seen some already? I thought your species was brand new. We are. I've seen a few back in our home territory. Good drinking buddies. Fun in stories. Good with blowing shit up. My translator picked up on the word you used, so it must be the same species. Well, they normally won't deal with a species until they're well connected, so they must see something special in you humans. A good deal, probably. So, is there one of these stations nearby? Emily nodded at that and tapped on his console, as she showed him on the FTR lane map where he would need to go. It was about 12 hours along the same lane, so they'd make it there the next day. Well, it's on the way to Inner Free. What's that? The planet I'm delivering the supplies to. Right. So, is this what you do for your job? You just drive and talk and sleep and eat and drive? Yep. There's also music and going to the bathroom and stuff. Unloading cargo, loading new cargo, arguing with the people who hired me, shit like that. Does your pet not need to relieve itself? I don't see any special equipment for it. Oh, Mittens? He goes in the space toilet. What? Is he intelligent? Just enough to do that. I once downloaded a translator app from CNET that lets me understand cats. Virtually everything translates to feed me or pet me, aside from when he's really content and says that I'm a good slave. Didn't like that too much, so I uninstalled it and talked to him like he's a stupid baby. I see. Do you read much? Only my American Bible. What's that? Let's finish eating before I get a book out. Don't want to stain it. She nodded at that, and they ate the remainder of their meals. Finally, Billy Bob wiped his hands off on his shirt and tossed the plate over his shoulder and into his trash can without looking. Then he reached into a compartment near his feet and pulled out a leather-bound book that had hundreds of little coloured tabs on the side that he placed on certain entries. Volume 3 is what you're going to want to read. 1 and 2 are also important, but that's the one that really gets at the heart of being an American. Is it a religious text? You see, yes and no. It's complicated. Being American is sort of about transcending traditional religion. We think everyone is free to believe what they want in that sense. In fact, as our Bible states, it is the solemn duty of every American to spread free religion everywhere. If we see two people arguing about what religion is best, we kick the shit out of them until they behave, because really all religions pale in comparison to being American. So they can believe whatever they want and shut the fuck up about it. Emily nodded slowly as she tried to process what he was telling her while looking at the book. But it's also a religion. Well, sure. We believe in Jesus since he was such a great guy. That's in Volume 2. We used to believe he was the son of God, but kind of grew out of that and just believe he was an early peaceful American who got killed because everyone was jealous about how awesome he was. Then his spirit was reincarnated in the Founding Fathers, only with violence added in because being peaceful sure as shit didn't work out for him the first time. What? Just start reading. See, about 100 years before Contact, we had a bunch of shitheads with religious extremist ideas around the world. There was this one guy in charge of a religion called the Pope. This guy was awesome, sort of like the original peaceful Jesus. Told people to get along and be nice and stop being dickheads. But of course, dickheads didn't like it and they killed him. Real dumb fuck move, of course, because the peaceful people got all pissed off. Everything went to shit. Then this guy in America realized that we needed to really do something about this shit once and for all. Emily began to open the book and read portions of it as Billy Bob kept talking. So, he made the new American deism, like the Founding Fathers. It's in Volume 3. So we stopped worrying about our own religions, because we realized our religion is to be American. You can still be American and a different religion, but you're American first. Like American Jew or American Satanist. Those guys can party. Shitty roommates, though. Anyway, we went on a big old crusade to kill everyone who wouldn't allow free religion, and settle shit real quick. And then we helped form a world government, but wouldn't join it, because ours was better anyway. That made Emily look over with confusion. Wait, your clan helped form the first unified government on your planet, and then didn't join? Yeah, it might have been okay for everyone else, but not us. But you made it. Billy Bob shrugged. It's hard to explain to non-Americans. If you visit Earth for a while, you'll get it. Mostly it was because no one was willing to spend as much on defense as we were anyway. Your one clan outspent the rest of the world on defense. Billy Bob grinned wide at that. Yep, that's how awesome we are. She shook her head then, as she pulled out the tabs. Oh, those are awesome bits I always like. Read them out loud. Emily hesitated as she looked at the print on the page and spoke up. And yea, verily did the glorious first president, George Washington, in all his glory and splendour, did deliver unto the face of the wicked King George, who might have the same name, but was totally a shitty George in comparison, a wicked right hook and laid him out flat. Billy Bob was nodding as she read that. Fuck yeah, he did. That man was so awesome, we named our capital after him. A state, and a whole day. He's on our money, and we made him a monument to show that he had the biggest dick of them all. He was a lifetime ruler? No, that's how awesome he was. Fuck, I love reading about him and the other Founding Fathers. The second president was pretty boss too. His cousin brewed beer, so I'm sure there were some serious parties in the White House while he was in office. Emily was shaking her head as she continued to read the American Bible in her lap. There's a section here dedicated to how to properly give people high fives and thumbs up. Oh yeah, proper etiquette for all Americans. They spent the next several hours with Billy Bob explaining to her more about the American Bible and how his clan behaved. She seemed dubious, but his emphatic nature made it clear he was being serious and honest with her. But finally they were both growing tired, and he had to pull off the FTL lane to make sure they didn't get in any accidents. Checking the map, he made sure they were well away from any nearby system before pulling out of the FTL lane in deep space. Emily was a little surprised as he spun down the engines and left the Longhorn out in the void. The blur of the FTL lane was behind them as he faced the cabin at the endless nothing in front of them. You really don't get bothered by this sort of thing. I don't mind travelling in small groups or alone, but to be out here in the void, we're light years from anywhere. He smiled at that and shrugged. I kinda like it. It's just us and all those stars out there. It's kinda neat to think the only lights we can see are likely dead stars. Humans sort of thrive on this. I don't know about the others, but when I pull off the FTL lane and set up to sleep for a while, I like to stare out into the nothingness. Sometimes I'll get in my spacesuit and just boost out into the blackness and sit there. Sometimes I think I see something out there in the void smile. That made Emily shudder for a moment. What do you do? I smile back. Emily stared at Billy Bob for a moment and gulped, but he just smiled at her. Here, let me show you how my headphones work. You'll be up for a while, I think, since our sleep cycles aren't the same. He showed her the music system and set up a playlist for her, starting with Dark Side of the Moon. When she offered him the bed, he quickly turned her down. Sorry, but a real American will always let the lady have the nicest spot to sleep. I'll just sleep in my chair. I do it all the time. He tucked his American flag and human flag hat down over his eyes, leaned his chair back, and settled in. Emily looked from the Bible in her lap over to Billy Bob. She couldn't believe these humans, or these Americans specifically. If what he said was true, that when humans learned the truth about the galactic government, they started a crusade that would set the galaxy on fire. They wouldn't stop until everyone was free, or dead. They were perfect.